Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Today, joining me all the way from Australia is Fee. You've seen Fee on the show many times before. She's over in the UK, staying with us at the moment, over in the village. And I thought we'd bring her on today because, as per one of our previous episodes, which featured Brandon and Uncapped, will continuation of the conversation in around different forms of funding. And I know that Brandon brought up this kind of hybrid model, which is basically where instead of just having investors in the business taking equity in the traditional sense, or going into a partnership or raising cash, etc., or selling to an aggregator or using a middle person as a broker, Fee signed a pretty unique deal, which is a hybrid model, which we'll talk about today. So Fee, welcome to the show.
Lovely to be here, Danny.
You're welcome. So let's, do you want to just give us a bit of background how this kind of model came around, and obviously they've invested in your business?
Yeah, so beginning of last year, 2022, my business was definitely getting to the point where it was too big for one person. I was struggling with the cash flow. I was struggling with the management and it was becoming way too complex for one person. I did have a VA helping me with certain admin tasks, but, I was struggling. So I had a choice. I either had to push on and find finance and build a team, or I had to sell the business, one or the other, because it couldn't continue. At the time it was stuck together with Band-Aids and sticky tape, so to speak. And it's only so far you can go with that as you get bigger and bigger before things start falling over. So I recognized that something had to change, that he needed to get out or build it properly. So at the time, the thought of building team, I knew that finance possibly I could get solved, but then I knew that the idea of building and managing a team was something that was even going to require skills of me that possibly I didn't have. So I opted for the option of going to the market, thinking that I would exit, and had an offer come through, but the offer really wasn't in my favor. Even though it would have been a life-changing offer, It wasn't in my favor, and I really was going to be selling out at a point where I wasn't getting the value of what I'd put in and what I knew that business was worth. So then I was in this no man's land of, oh God, what am I going to do? And so I decided to, look into what it would involve building a team. And so I contacted a company, and then that conversation led to another conversation, which then led me to the company that are now I'm involved with, which is, as you mentioned, a hybrid model, which we'll talk about.
Yeah. So to back that up a bit, you were in the sale process. You were going through a brokerage at a period of time.
Yep.
And what happened, from my understanding, is there was one element where because you're Australian based and the taxes were just lethal, the amount of taxes that you would have had to pay on the deal, which made it impossible. And it was coming towards not the tail end, but it was coming off the end of the peak when you started the cycle of going out and going out to find a buyer.
Yeah. So the deal that was offered to me, as I say, it still would have changed my life.
Yeah.
But it was a asset deal only, and being an Australian company, in order for me to then take the money from that sale, I would have had to have taken it as personal earnings, which would have put me in the highest tax bracket at 41%. If I had managed to broker a share deal, which is a company sale, it would have only attracted a 9% company tax. So that's a huge amount. And then when you put the brokerage fees on top of that, it would have been more than 50% of the sale price going to tax and brokerage. And I just couldn't warrant that. It made no sense to put all this hard work in just to give half of it away. So, I couldn't manage to get the offer to change to an asset deal, a share deal. So I decided to walk.
Yeah. And I think that's not too uncommon in terms of with asset deals as well.
Yeah.
Just generally across the market. And of course, with the notion of outside of that and thinking, well, I can get a better multiple. And I think one of the biggest things which was quite tough for Amazon sellers in a nice way, is hearing their friends and their peers going, I got X, I got this, I got that. And they got that based on this bubble, which was outrageous, that is never going to be seen again. Now, I think we're going to get a lift up in the future, but we'll never go to high that peak. And it's very difficult to sit around speaking to people and feel like you didn't get a bad deal when everyone's gone, yeah, my multiple's up here and I've got one that's actually realistic, but that realistic one is a bit of too hard of a push, right? So then you go, I'm just going to build it myself. We'll just go to XYZ. We're going to just scale it now. And then we'll sell once we've scaled to make this thing work, in a structured sense.
Yeah. So basically the way this hybrid model works is that I gave a percentage of my company to this company. And in return, they're helping me with the finance. So that solved the cash flow issues. They're helping me build out the SOPs and putting all the structure around the company. So getting everything out of Fee's head and systemizing it. And then what that's allowing me to do is then build the team to take on things so that we can scale faster. Yeah. So I've got 2 management consultants that work with me on a weekly basis, several times a week. They're there for me anytime. They're helping to work with the team as we grow to make sure everything's systemized. We've got the company structure all set up. And that in itself has been invaluable. So when I go to sell in, 18 months, 2 years, however long that is, because the idea still is to exit, then whoever buys the company is buying a fully fledged company, not just this company that's been sitting in one person's head with all the IP there, because that takes a lot away from the value of a company. But now all that IP, all of those systems and structures are now recorded, and we run a really tight ship now, and I'm very proud of it. And, if one of my team members were to leave, it's not a big deal because we can replace them, because everything that person does is recorded and systemized and all the processes are in place. So that adds a huge amount of value to any potential buyers in the future.
Yeah, and one of the most important parts of that is where they earn their money. Yeah, which is not necessarily unique, but this is why I think it becomes attractive. Do you want to explain how they earn their money back from their investment?
Yeah, so in the contract that was signed, obviously we know when they've come to me, I've built the business to a certain level on my own, and it was valued, and luckily I'd already had that offer. So we already knew.
Are we allowed to say that number?
I'd rather not. Okay. Yeah. So we already knew what that value of the business was at that point. It was multiple 7 figures. Let's just say that. And so that is now protected in this deal, that is mine 100%, because I built that on my own. They had no input into that. So the way it works is the investors or this company, they take their percentage only from that point and above. So whatever they're adding to my company is what they are able to take.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and so for the structure of that company, the reason and kind of works is it's a trifecta, and you've got someone who's brilliant at scaling and bringing in people and taking a small team large very, very fast. Then you've got someone who or still is a reputable broker, has been in the game for a number of years. And then you've got the former CEO of a lending company on board. So that's how all those 3 elements put together. Yeah. So where do you sit on the day-to-day?
Yeah, so I'm still considered the managing director. I still make all the business decisions. However, because they have an interest in the company now, major decisions need to be made together. And at first I was like, oh, that's going to be really hard. And it's not that I have to ask permission as such. It's just that I have to propose, okay, so this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to launch these products, or I'd like to invest in this software or whatever. If it's a larger amount, I think it's over $5,000. And have their support. And I was really worried. What if, going into this deal, they've got a different way of doing things, or they don't align with my vision and whatnot. So it was a bit scary. But, we're nearly 9-10 months into this process, and I've had nothing but support, nothing but, and also, I've kind of joked in a few ways with my directors that I feel like I'm getting an MBA for free because, whilst I've been fairly successful in doing what I'm doing, I'm literally been learning as I go because I didn't have a background in e-commerce or product development or logistics or anything, especially and also in running a multiple seven-figure business. I've never been there before. So working with a team of people who, as you say, are very experienced and very successful business people, I am learning a lot. So when I go to them and have these discussions about, I'd like to do this, or I was thinking that, I'm now getting input from people who have way more knowledge than I do, and I'm learning a lot from them. And one of my weak spots, I would say my Achilles is in numbers. It's not my thing. I'm not a highly data-driven person. And now I have people to turn to say, hey, can you help me with this? Or can you come back to me with some projections on this or that? And for me to feel confident that this business is not being run by guesstimations anymore, which it was when I was in charge. Yeah. And thankfully it was working for me. But as I mentioned, that's only going to go so far before you guesstimate and make a big mistake. And, you potentially make a business decision that's going to cost a lot of money. Yeah. So to have that security of the business people around me now who are very experienced and very successful in what they do, and also they're very well connected to other people in the industry that I might need access to. So I'm now having experts that work for, so I'm in the toy space, and I've had experts from people who used to work for Hasbro and Mattel come to consult with me. So would I have access to them without these introductions? Possibly not. I mean, I possibly could have found them. Would I have thought to have found them, or would I have known where to go, or would have I had the endorsement to work with them? No. So the value in having those kind of people working and consulting with me is incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
So would it be fair to say we're now at Fee 3.0? We've had these discussions before, right?
Yes.
Because remember when we've been working together for a number of years, and you had such a torrid time getting to the first million and just past that, like literally everything that could go wrong. And we've said it on the show before, like you'd come to me sometimes in tears, and then it was like we'll have another conversation 6 months later and it's water off a duck's back. It's like, yeah, that's just cost 160 grand, or they're withholding money. And how do you feel about it? She's like, yeah, and then you'll get on with the next thing. And it's like you kind of built up a shell around you now to do that. Yeah. And I said one of the biggest challenges now is going from, you and a couple of other people, and then managing a team and all this kind of stuff. And then the next growth is, how to get to $1 million, how to get to the mid figures. And now it's like your next task is to go 3.0 in terms of getting to 8 figures now.
Yeah, it was interesting. When I was first doing the negotiations, can we name the company? I think we should.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the company is called South Cole. And when I was first chatting with South Cole, one of their questions when they were sort of working out whether I was the kind of person that would fit with them, they said, what does your ideal day look like? If you can imagine what your ideal day working. And I said, oh man. So for me, definitely it's the creativity, it's the product development, it's the working with suppliers, looking at fabrics and materials and all that kind of stuff. So that was one thing that I expressed that I really liked and wanted to keep doing. It's the vision. Also for me, it was the vision of the brand and the strategy. So I really like that high level, forward thinking, big picture stuff. And anyone who's been following me for a while also knows that part of that vision is the mission of the company, which is to empower women and girls. And so, I really wanted to lean into that more and make that a stronger part of what my brand stands for and how it's identified by as customers. And here we are 9 months later, and I can quite happily say that that's where I'm spending my time, in product development, in building out the vision and the mission and the communication of the brand. I'm about to launch into a podcast and provide education in that realm as well. And I've really been able to look several years ahead now as to, where this company is going, and I can see it all. And now I have I kind of describe it as the scaffolding. And I guess that's what Southcol have provided for me, is the scaffolding around me so that I can just literally climb rung by rung to get to where I want the brand to go. And the fulfillment I get from that on a daily basis is just incredible. Like, you probably see my face has started to light up as I talk about it, because it's what brings me joy. You know, I'm not stuck in the day-to-day grind of things. I have team members to help me with that, and they're really good at what they do. They're amazing, and I'm so grateful for everything that they're doing, because they're a big part of that scaffold. Without them, I couldn't do what I'm doing. Yeah.
And so what's the plan for, you have a set timeline, I imagine, for exiting. Obviously, you've got to spend a chunk of money when you're bringing in various different people, consultants, and launching. You know, we're going into Europe now. I know we discussed on the show last time you was over, we did a show, I think it was.
Yep.
And we were talking about Europe, and it was a bit of a ball ache and a bit painful. But now you still haven't launched in Europe, and there's a shit ton more stuff that you better deal with. Can we talk about any of those problematic areas with the paperwork?
Look, Europe is one of those things that you kind of scratch the surface when you're first deciding to go into it, and you think, oh, yeah, I can see that's more complex than maybe going into Canada or Australia or UK. But I thought, you know, that should be fine. I gave myself 6 months. Well, I think it's going to be about a 12-month process in total. Partly because I have electrical products, partly because I'm in the children's space. Also because I'm a non-EU based company, so I have to have an EU representative, and the compliance you have to jump through for that is just ridiculous for every single country, and it's all different rules. There's also in the EU recycling laws and compliance with recycling, and you have to be registered for this and that. Then you need fiscal representation. It just goes on and on and on. And I've now got a project manager I brought on in April to help me with, you know, I've got several products. We're also working on a D2C strategy as well, launching Shopify. There's the EU launch. There's, 27 odd new SKUs. So I brought in a project manager to support me. And I tell you what, since he took on the EU, he's uncovered so many more things that I was completely unaware of. And I'm so grateful to have him to spend all that time and research and, doing all the interactions with. There's probably about, 10 different companies that we're having to deal with right now to finalize and tie all the final little bows before we're about 2-3 weeks away maybe from shipping goods. So yeah, I think it'll be a 12-month process from when I decided to do it to when actually we'll have my first products in the EU.
And what are the levers for the timeline for the exit?
Yeah, look, initially it was a 24-month process, we thought. But this year, things often take longer. Like I've just explained, the EU has taken twice as long as we expected. The products, we will have, as I mentioned, 27 odd SKUs launched this year. But then there's a whole pile more that we were going to, just didn't have time for. And the amount of funds that we've buried into the company this year in terms of consultants and, Shopify site and this and that, and everything else. So I'd say we're probably going to be at least another 6 months behind in that 24 months in doing the exit. But the idea was to at least get to that 8 figures. We have our, a set EBITDA in place. So we're looking to reach that. And, we had a conversation about 4 weeks ago to say, we can see that, we're still going to be able to exit, but it's probably going to be about 6 months behind. So there's no pressure to do that exit at the end of next year or early 2025. It might be sort of halfway through 2025, because it's important that we get some of these really important building blocks in place, these foundations, because that's what's going to help to increase our multiple. We spoke about the multiples not being what they were, but there are certain initiatives that if I can nail them and get them in place, that's going to add an extra couple of multiples onto the sale. Yeah.
And so how does the hiring work? Are you doing all the interviews, or is it a filtered process?
Yeah. So through Southcol is Escala, which so Yoni from Escala is part of the Southcol team. And then, of course, Yoni is also involved with Multiply Me. So some of the direct hires I've done for full-time staff have come through Multiply Me. And, I've had some incredibly strong candidates come through, thanks to, it takes them, 2, 3, 4 weeks to bring me some candidates. I select who I want to interview, and then I make the final choice. So that's how I've found my internal team members. But then in terms of consultants, South Cole, as I mentioned earlier, have introduced me to people that they have connections with, and they're industry people who are very high level. And so I've been able to tap into knowledge and expertise that, if I hadn't done this, I would never have had access to it. So that's allowing me to really, like, the visions that I had, that I felt frustrated with at, beginning of last year, because I didn't have the money, but I realized I didn't quite have the expertise to do it and do it well and nail it. And I feel confident now with the talent around me that I'm able to do that.
Excellent. What advice would you give to people possibly looking to do? I'm sure there's other people out there doing this, so this isn't like a plug for the company that you're working for, but in general, I can see this model open up a lot more.
Yeah.
What would your advice to sellers in terms of getting prepared for a deal like this? And what would, because it's always going to be the good and bad, right? Because it's checking boxes.
Yeah. Look, that is a huge part. And look, it took 6 months before a deal was signed from when we first started discussions. That was a lot to do with getting the contract right. And so firstly, I would say you would need to get a contract lawyer in. And, when the first contract came through, it wasn't that there was anything bad in it, but it was important for me to make sure that my best interests were being represented in that. And so and because it was, between 2 different countries, one law, another law, it took a lot of back and forth to get that right. But what I will say is, in that 6 months, we had a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, and because there was so much belief that we were going to proceed anyway, we did start on some stuff. And so what that allowed me to do is get a really good feel for who I would be working with. Who am I getting into bed with, so to speak? Are they the kind of people that have the same values systems as I do? Is their work ethic going to align with mine? And as I mentioned, it was a big thing for me to go, oh, can I let go? Because I've never had a business partner, and that was hard. This is my baby. This is my dream. This is my vision. And I wanted to be sure that wasn't going to be squashed. So, for example, the philanthropy, I was no way I was going to sign anything if it meant that a few months down the line, they were going to say, oh, we don't think you should continue with that. We don't support it, because that would have crushed me if that had happened. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is you've got to be prepared to strap yourself in, because this is going on into walk drive, so to speak. So, if you think you're already working hard and you're putting in, be prepared that it's going to sort of really amp up. And there've been some moments where I have felt overwhelmed. I'll be honest about that. I felt quite overwhelmed with the amount of projects and the amount of things that were going on. But what I will say is, every time I got to that point and I'm like, you know what, I feel like I'm starting to drown, there's too much going on, I put my hand up, everyone swooped in to help me. All right, okay, so and that's how the project manager came on board, because I was like, I can't keep doing this. I feel like I've got not just 20 tabs open, which is normal for me. I had 100 tabs open in my brain, and I was starting to miss things and starting to not be effective. And so that's when the decision was made, okay, Fee, so we're going to bring in a project manager to support you. So, that is something to consider, that it is high pressure, and because things move very, very fast.
Excellent. What is the best way that people can reach you?
Possibly the Facebook page that I have under the name Fiona Suter, which is a public Facebook page. That's where I share, videos about my journey and what I'm going through. But you can message me through there. That's the best place.
Excellent, guys. Thank you for joining us today. Fee, well done. I'm proud of your journey.
Danny. So good to be back.
It's been a long road, isn't it?
It has indeed.
Yeah, it's been a long road, but you're getting there, and I look forward to you getting that exit. Guys, thank you for joining us again today. Shona will be up next. Take care of yourself and your family. Much love, and I'll see you again next week.